you got to reward him, because if he doesn't get rewarded for it, I have fears about him going and reverting back to being the guy that swung at everything. Can you just bring it in just a little bit? Because, man, if a pitcher makes any sort of mistake, goodbye. Hey, everybody. Welcome to a new edition of the Selby is Godcast. I'm T.J. Zuppe. That is Zach Meisel. We've got ZiPS projections to get to, which dropped late last week, but we were in the midst of taking care of a few other things, including a few bonus episodes over at Patreon, patreon.com/SelbyIsGodcast. So I thought it'd be a great way to begin the week. All right, you start the week by looking ahead. Projections are just looking ahead. Be a great match made in heaven. What do you think?
Can Zip start doing projections for just daily lives?
In what way?
What are the odds that, like, how... I want ZiPS to tell me how many times I'm going to have to shovel the driveway this week.
The limit does not exist.
It can use past data from the winter and say it's projected like 2.7 times.
But a good projection system would admit that we're only going based off things that have already happened. It doesn't tell you for certain what is going to happen in the future. And if there are some weather changes, some anomalies out there, it could throw a wrench into the whole projection. So you don't want to base your whole week upon that, right?
Yeah, I guess the weather forecast is essentially ZiPS projections anyway. But I want like daily lives. I want like give me how many hours is my newborn daughter going to sleep on February 7th?
Yeah, but we can only go based on what she's done to this point and what other similar babies in the same age range have done before.
Yeah.
And that's all projections are.
I want that information.
That's all projections are. And, of course, we've utilized projections on this show before. We've been talking about Steamer because Steamer's been all we've had to this point. There's been a new projection system that dropped recently. You see Oopsie. Oopsie's on Fangraphs. I like it. I like it. The more we have, more off-season content that we can chew on, the better. So it's not that ZiPS is particularly better than any of the others, though I do like ZiPS. And ZiPS comes from I feel like theirs often differs in ways that are fun or enjoyable or at least intriguing. And given that it's new, it'd be a great thing to talk about today. I picked out 9 over-unders that I want to toss your way. I want you to tell me whether it's an over or under on these projections. Before we do that, though, there is some bit of news. At the end of last week, just Friday in the afternoon, you're thinking, it's just going to be a casual weekend, nothing to talk about here leading into the weekend and into next week. The Guardians say not so fast. You know that center fielder we paid a lot of money and are going to continue to pay a lot of money into the future, and he's playing down in Columbus? Well, not to be anymore. In fact, he shipped up to Toronto, where now he's on the Double-A roster in a move that we thought it had something to do with Sasaki, and it did, but not in the way the Blue Jays want. Myles Straw, no longer a member of the Cleveland organization. Your thoughts?
Oh, the Blue Jays, man. Kudos to the Guardians front office for finding a way to get out of a lost cause. I think Myles Straw is what he is. I think there's a few things at play here. I think one, like, I don't want to commend a front office for finding a way to unload a contract it regrets, because then don't give him the contract to begin with. It was a head scratcher from the get-go because this was a guy whose entire game was built on speed and defense, and those are qualities that by the time he was making premium dollar in this contract, those things can decline. So it was always a head scratcher, but we never paid too much attention to it because it happened like a few days before Jose Ramirez signed his. So it got completely overshadowed. That said, to find a team so desperate to take that is a huge victory, assuming that, it's a little different than like, well, Jimenez is going to make too much money down the road, and like, we don't think he can become the hitter that he was a couple years ago, so we want to get out from underneath that. And you could still get a useful player for that. But like, you had to give up some cash and the international bonus pool space, where I don't, to get rid of him any other way, you're probably pairing him with a prospect or giving up something useful. So it's a nice job of them to prey on a desperate team, and especially considering how soon after the trade Sasaki signed elsewhere. Like, it looks like they were playing chess and the Blue Jays
regrettable.
were playing, like, Go Fish.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to laugh at you, Canada, but that is regrettable. I texted it to you. It's just like this man has his family, this beautiful wife and kids, and he just leaves it all behind, and it turns out that he went across the country to go be with someone that was catfishing Megan Fox. It was not what you thought you were signing up for. A really bad decision all across the board, and that ended up being the case. But as you said, kudos to the front office. To be in this position, yes, it's another thing that's very regrettable. Giving him the contract ended up being terrible. I will say, clearly, the straw that they thought that they were signing, this is nowhere close to that same guy. All of the positives that he brought offensively just fell off the table. And I want to make this a revisionist history of what happened with Myles Straw. We're beyond that. But you're in this position now, right? We could talk about whether you should or should not have done it, but today you are here. So how do you make the best of this bad situation? And I think they did that. You need to turn around and use this money. You can't just keep talking about the flexibility. It doesn't mean anything to create it if it's just going back into your owner's pockets or somewhere that doesn't really reflect on the field.
This is a little different because this is such a sunk cost. I mean, Myles Straw was not going to be on this team. He wasn't on this team last year. They were committed to 3 years of him becoming an Ohio State fan because he's just living 10 minutes from campus. Like, he's
and all that time invested, and they trade him before the national championship game. I mean, how rude could they be?
I don't know where he winds up with Toronto. They've got such a mess on their hands up there, but this is different. You're not trading him to say, oh, thank God, now we have $6 million we can use. Like with the Jimenez thing, and believe me, you don't need me to tell you that they should be looking for avenues to improve the roster here. But Straw is that's on its own. We just got to get rid of this guy because it's a complete waste. We're not using him at all, and we're paying him money. Like, whether you're the Guardians or the Dodgers, you would be motivated to move him. Now, They should go use flexibility that they have from other deals too. But this is just this is different to me. This is their best trade of the offseason, honestly. It's
That's sad. That's sad. But it's probably true to this point. You're getting rid of someone that you didn't need and using international bonus pool space that you deemed you weren't going to use, or at least you may have used it, but it wasn't going to be impactful. It's more impactful to trade the guy off your team to create at least some wiggle room so you can afford, I don't know, to take a shot on some free agent that you couldn't before. Or maybe we do the thing that we've been screaming about all the times where they've used a little bit of money here and a little bit of money there and a little bit of money on this third guy. I don't know, why don't you pull it all together and make it for one player that actually makes a difference? Perhaps that can happen with Jimenez. Or maybe it's the difference between into the future feeling like they can offer Stephen Kwan a slightly better extension. Utilize it, because you can't just keep talking about the flexibility being a part of these trades and then never turn around and use it on anything. That doesn't work for me. That's no longer a positive if you didn't use it on anything.
Yeah, it's weird. I feel like every winter unfolds in deliberate fashion, and it's painful how slow things materialize each offseason, just the league in general. Obviously, in Cleveland, they rarely participate in this. I get the sense, but lately it feels like it's come to a complete standstill. I mean, I know Sasaki and Tanner Scott signed, but aside from the Dodgers, is anybody doing anything? Alex Bregman at the time we're recording this is still out there. Jack Flaherty's still out there. Santander's still out there. And you hear a little bit of buzz, but there's just nothing happening.
Santander playing with Brian Rocchio in the offseason, just hanging out.
Yeah, I get the sense the Guardians have a list of guys they like. It's not so much, we would like to upgrade this position and we will go after the number one guy there and then he signs elsewhere, so the number two guy. I think they have a list of guys they like. I know they've been snooping around the reliever market a bit, but like not Tanner Scott level, but trying to find a certain guy who maybe they feel like can help them. There was the report about Gleyber Torres, and I'm sure they'd love to upgrade. Like they should be trying to upgrade the lineup, as we'll talk about the ZiPS projections here in a minute. And
Yeah, at any position.
The number one thing that stands out to me is they're probably 2 bats short. But, I also get this sense, like I think they operate from we have the flexibility if we find the guy we like, but if we don't, we'll just sit on this. I don't know if that's the right or wrong way to approach this, but that's kind of where they're at, I think.
Yeah, and to be clear, if you don't utilize this flexibility now and it doesn't manifest in some extension, then that only doubles the importance at the trade deadline that, again, this is not a roadblock that you can't go trade for somebody that's making a lot of money. If you keep that in your back pocket, as much as I'll be upset today, turn around and use that at the trade deadline. Utilize that in the middle of the season. And they have done that on occasion. They've spent a little bit of money. Then they tell you, oh, well, look at what we spent in 24. Yeah. We spent more in the middle of the season than any other team. Okay,
like
well,
third,
you better turn around and
third in terms of payroll added at the deadline. But like by that point in the season, you're paying a third of the guys' salaries who you acquire. And also, what owner, like, you should always have the green light to go make additions if you're in first place and you're a legitimate contender.
So
that
yeah. Not
I don't
always
know.
the case,
That's an easy excuse, I feel like. Why can't you do both?
Sure, but I'm saying it only doubles down. If you don't spend it now, you better spend it later. You better not use this as any sort of roadblock.
And then there's more pressure at the deadline when prices to make trades are higher. There's not that free agent who's going to fall into your lap in July who can mitigate some of the desperation.
I do like that they've maintained an ability here that if something is to shake loose and fall into their lap, they can leap upon it right now. They don't have an excuse here. And we know they love to do that, whether it was the Encarnacion thing many years ago or other cases where even the Boone Logan thing probably fell in their lap and it's like, okay, well, we do like him and let's spend the money even if we're not sure where he fits. That didn't work out specifically, and I think Tito has often taken a lot of blame on that himself by saying I didn't know how to utilize him the best way possible. But at least they went out and got somebody that projected to be talented, and they spent that money. I'm glad that they have this in that Straw trade, for as much as I can say it's important that they utilize the money that they create. Bottom line is I love what they were able to accomplish, and I give them a lot of credit for taking a situation. They love this, where there's a unique space where they can creep in and find a way to capitalize on somebody else's desperation. That's a good thing. I love when a team can find a way to do that in like a 3-team deal. Oh, well, they're close. They're 80% of the way there. They're 90% of the way there, but they can't quite push it over the finish line. I'll help. I'll find a way, and I'll get something out of it that I really like. But always seek to be that team. Yeah. Always you have to be that team when you're Cleveland. We could scream about what the major league structure looks like and the fact that the Dodgers are getting all of these free agents and it's all shaping up to benefit them, or the fact that Cleveland should spend more money when they can. But this is also the reality. So find ways to capitalize. And I think this is the perfect way to do it. A team needs something that you have, and you can find a way to get out of it based on their desperation. So credit to them for at least being open to it and finding a way to get that done.
Yeah, and I do want to give them credit for one other thing, and it's rewinding a year ago. I give them credit for moving off of Straw when they did. I mean, when it is a sunk cost at that point, you can amplify how much it hurts you by saying, well, we're paying him, we got to play the guy, and sticking him in the lineup every day to your own detriment. And they decided, and look, new regime, new set of eyes, new perspectives. I think that played a role in this, but credit to them for deciding last spring. I know we agree, we're committed to him financially, but that doesn't mean we have to be committed to him on the field. And, we talked about whether he was going to make the playoff roster or not. Kind of similar reasons. Like, yeah, you like certain skills he brings, but you don't need to feel obligated to have him be a part of this just because you're paying him. And I know that that's been tough to do over the course of history. And so I do give them credit for that. And it looks even more prudent now that they were able to unload that contract.
I wish they were in a position where they could utilize him I think there is a team that exists
Sure.
where Myles Straw is a major leaguer and actually plays some beneficial role. It's not going to be in Cleveland where every bench spot is critical, especially when one of them is occupied by someone that's a pseudo coach.
How about the Dodgers?
Right. Right. They can afford to have somebody that occupies a bench spot. But when you have a team that everybody has a platoon partner or everybody needs some caddy here to help them through the season and get the most out of a certain position, giving one of those spots to Myles Straw when Austin Hedges already exists on the bench, that's probably not the best use of resources.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at this offense through the ZiPS projections. You mentioned that there's some areas of this roster that looks like they're a little bit shy of where they'd like to be. Let's start at the tippy top, though, with a man that continues to be an MVP caliber player, Jose Ramirez. Sir, I looked at his projections. Another year older, but the projections still believe he's going to continue to be a very good player. No doubt there. They spit out 29 home runs for Jose Ramirez. Would you take the over or under 29 home runs for Jose another year older?
I cannot doubt the man until he gives me reason to doubt him. So I'll say over. He hit 39 last season, and that's a really interesting number because here, since he became this player, let's say 2016 was like kind of his breakout season, but that was more, he was just going to slap everything around the ballpark. Then the next year he hit 56 doubles, 29 home runs. So let's start 2017. Here's his home run total by year. And I'll omit. Well, no, let's do a little math. Let's see. What would he have hit in 2020? He was on pace.
Are you going to do some extrapolating? Oh, my goodness.
I'm going to do some extrapolating. He was on pace for 46. Okay. Here's his home run total by year. 29, 39, 23, though he missed some time. 46, he would have been on pace for. 36, 29, 24, 39. So he's hit exactly 29 twice before. He's gone over it 3 times, would have gone over it a 4th time. He's only gone under it twice. Once was 2023 and once was 2019 when he struggled for a while, then he broke the hamate bone. And so I think it's one of those where it's like, it's really hard to pick against Patrick Mahomes until he gives you reason to pick against him. I like Buffalo. But, so I think you have to go over. Right?
That's just an opinion, by the way. Don't take that anywhere. Utilize that information anywhere. And then later come back and say Zach owes you anything. So I'm going to put that out there before anyone comes back.
When can we be sponsored by one of those sports books? Remember when they were just doling out cash to every podcast
doing better
in the world?
Start landing some of those parlays. Yeah, 29 is a good number. My first impression was I'm going over. The more I thought about it, I thought it was a safer number to say 29. I'm still going to say over, though.
He also wants to go 40-40, and when this guy wants to do something, he usually does it.
Yeah.
He also said 80-80, so...
I know that there is going to be a decline coming, and maybe we've started to see it a little bit, maybe just in his chase rate, too. That was higher this past year. I also don't know how much of that is ever a product of the players around you, and it's not necessarily a skills deteriorating issue. It's that I need to take more upon me when the offense is scuffling and I'm not seeing as much to hit, and so I'm not as patient. Is that a tangible thing that he's made a choice in his brain as opposed to I'm not recognizing pitches as quickly as I used to, and so something out of the zone, I'm swinging at it? I don't know. I'll need more data. At some point, it is going to be a real thing that the skills do decline. But I have a hard time believing it's going to happen to the level where he's going to hit below 29 home runs. So I think it's a safe thing to say he's going to be over. I don't know that he's going to get back close to 40 again, but I think over 29 feels safe. Let's stick with the power.
Wait, just one last thing on him. Are you going to be surprised if we, and maybe this goes hand in hand with him never winning the MVP. I just thought we would see one season from him at some point. And this is kind of unfair because maybe we did see it in like 2018 or something, or even 2017. We never got that season where he hits like 330 with 30, like just his immaculate season. Like he's had some incredible years. And honestly, maybe 2020 was going to be that year. Almost a 1,000 OPS. But we never got that 1 year. He's just such a well-rounded hitter. I thought we would get a year where it's just like, I can't believe what this guy's doing.
Yeah, we've got it for stretches, but he's been slowed by, maybe in the midst of doing that, he's had wrist issues, hand issues, just things that have slowed him down enough that it took away from that. Mm-hmm. But he has had stretches where it looked like he was on his way to doing that.
Well, remember, 2018 he was, and then he had a rough, I think last like 6 or 7 weeks. 2022 he was, and then he hurt his hand. But we never got that full season.
It's so hard to predict his decline too because he's such a unicorn at so many different things. Where the low strikeout rate. Normally you'd say, well, here's a guy that has to sell out for more power. But what happens when you already have one of the lowest strikeout rates in the league? Does it just mean that you go from one of the best to you're still in the top third? You're not the most elite of the elite, but you're still pretty good at that. Is it possible that your bat speed, for as much as that matters for every hitter, isn't as important for him because it's just about knowing how to utilize the pulled fly balls, and he's already just optimized that. It's not so much about creating this lethal bat whip through the zone. It's just he knows how to pull the ball out in front and get it over the fence as much as he does.
Well, and that's the thing. The baseball instincts are so high. He's so smart that I'm not saying like, I want him to be 38 years old and I want to see, like, I am curious though to see how he's able to adapt as he starts to lose those physical skills. And, I don't know how old he's going to want to play until, but what kind of hitter can he be at 38?
Yeah.
I'm curious to find out. Not yet. But
the Jose Ramirez DH years. Can't wait. Yeah. Sticking with extra base power, Stephen Kwan. The projections at ZiPS have him for 37 extra base hits, which is actually more than he had this past year. Now, a lot of that is because of time lost. 24-5-8. That's the spit out what it has here. 24 doubles, 5 triples, 8 home runs. I didn't give you 8 specifically because I figured you would just say over, and I think you're going to say over on this regardless, but I think it does raise an important point. But let me first ask you over under 37 extra base hits.
I'm going to say over. I mean, 2023, he had 48. 2022, he had 38. Last year, he had 33, but he missed 40 games. I think this is certainly undervaluing the change in philosophy at the plate.
Sure, there you go.
Which, I mean, his doubles total was not noteworthy last season. He was on pace for a lot fewer doubles than he had the year before. Obviously, the home run rate was going to
They were
quadruple.
clearing the fence. They were clearing the fence instead of
But I think if you just look at the slugging percentage, I mean, ZiPS projects him at 389. Last season, he was 425. And I don't know that he's going to fully buy into... I think he's got to figure out what works best for him. I think we saw him in the playoffs kind of reverting back to that, let me just spray singles all over the place. And it worked incredibly. So he's got to figure out exactly what this looks like. But I think no matter what the approach is, I think he's probably over.
Yeah, I think you raised the point that I wanted to make. The thing that you can't blame a projection system for is not always believing a change that happens, in this case, a home run, because they're going to look, the projection is, this computer here, the algorithm is going to see that as an anomaly and try to regress that back to what he's typically been. It can't take into account always that someone is making a tangible change, whether it's with a swing, whether it's with approach, whether it's how pitchers are attacking him. There are factors that you just can't fully fit into an algorithm. So it takes some mental gymnastics to take that from the computers. And I think that's helpful because we often we'll fall into the trap of what was the most recent thing we saw, and that's going to continue. And this is a reminder that everything comes back to average. Everything does, to some level, whether it's a barrel rate or whether it's a velocity or something like that. It's a good reminder that still exists, that the mean still exists, and so we're going to regress back to it a little bit. I would take the over on 8 home runs, but I don't know that he's going to hit for as the home run total he did last year. And I don't even know if that's what's best for him. I think that's kind of what you're saying. What is the fully formed final version? No one that ever really gets there. You're always evolving. But what is the best version of Stephen Kwan in terms of power? And if he has to sacrifice a few of those home runs that he hit last year for a batting average that's going to be over 320, I think you're just turning one thing into another form of production.
Remember they used to say that Ichiro, if he wanted, could hit 40 home runs?
All the time.
That in batting practice he'd put on these displays. But he never needed to change his approach. The guy could just, with his eyes closed, rack up 230 hits in a season.
Sure.
So
I wonder how much of him, what did he think, do I want to just be this average home run hitter that everyone exists, or do I want to be this elite thing that no one else has seen or is being
and
at this point?
How much are you sacrificing of just the threat you offer at the plate, where you could take any pitch and turn it into a single or a double, but there are only certain pitches you could hit for a home run? And how is it, is it making you more liable to chase stuff? Is it making you more susceptible to certain secondary pitches out of the zone? There's a whole cat and mouse game. This is stuff, Stephen Kwan, to even get to the point he got to last year where he's like, I need to be more willing to swing and miss and take chances and try to impact the ball more. To even get to that point took various changes in approach and studying things. And so I'm curious to see what this looks like this year now that he's had experience at different stuff and has proven successful in different ways. And part of it too is how much did injuries factor into a second half slide for him? And because if a back injury and hamstring trouble is why he kind of fell off there in August and September, and then you could say, okay, well, you were flirting with 400 before that and you were hitting for power. So maybe don't change anything from last season and just stay healthy for 160 games. And who knows what that looks like. And in thinking about that too, I was surprised that they project him for 3.1 WAR, which would be the lowest of his career. He had 4.1 last year and he missed 40 games. The year before he had 3.2, I think. It's interesting. I wonder how much of it too is he's always going to be overlooked. The size, the profile. But isn't he a super high floor player? Gold Glove defense. Yeah. Has speed on the bases.
Well, I think that's probably what it's suggesting too. Just the fact that it's a 3, that tells you he's the safest floor player you could believe in right now.
Would you, if you had to choose, he'll either finish with 2.5 WAR or 6 WAR?
Oh my goodness.
What would you guess?
I would say 6. I don't feel great about either of those things happening, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I think his peaks, both to the negative and to the positive, are much closer. I think they're compressed. But I would say 6. I just can't see the
3.1 is pretty low.
Because the defense is there. You're telling me if he's a 2.5 that he was just bad offensively. Or just really kind of yuck. And I think he brings enough of those other things in the steals and that I don't know how you would get that far below 3. Third on this list, the catcher. We've said he's an important part of this team. I'm curious to see when March rolls around where he's going to fit into the March Madness bracket of importance for this Cleveland team. Bo Naylor, 100 OPS plus, an exactly league average bat. Would you take the over or under here?
I knew this one was coming.
And yet you're not prepared. How is this possible?
I was going to say, am I really starting off with 3 consecutive overs? Maybe this new positivity in 2025 thing is legitimate. Here's why I'm going to take the over. One, because I just irrationally believe in the guy, and I might need to curse him for the 6-week stretch he had at the end of 2023, where I was like, if not for that, I don't think I would believe in him. But that was just, he was such a patient, powerful, poised hitter. That's in there somewhere. But I look at the slash line projections, and to get to the 100 OPS plus, they project him at 220, 309, 397. And I think that's completely attainable. The walk rate maybe pushing a little bit, but like, he's demonstrated patience at the plate before. I've no doubt he can hit for enough power to come close to or exceed a 400 slugging percentage. So I'm going to say over, just because I think he's got the qualities. Like, he's never going to be a guy who hits 280. But I think he has the power and the patience, the extra, the doubles and home runs potential to push that thing over league average. So I have to say over. And they desperately need it. This guy's going to have to, whenever he's not catching, it's going to be Austin Hedges catching. So, and he's not going to sniff a 100 OPS plus. So they have to get that from Bo Naylor.
Closest he'll get is if he just has a good first game. And then he'll ride that for like a week or two. And Naylor, the 220, 309, 397 does feel absolutely within the wheelhouse. I think of him, what would the best, I'm going to say the best version because I can dream up a really important one, but one within the realm of possible, what is the best version of him? Isn't it something like 245, 320 to 330 in the on-base percentage and a 400 slug? And just being somewhere in that 730 to 750 OPS range? That feels absolutely possible for him with like 17 to 20 home runs. That's absolutely possible for him. I hate that we're going to be in agreement on this one, but I think I'm going to take the over. I've already been on the record of saying that I have some positive feelings on him, even though that I don't know that I have a lot of data to back up why I feel those positive things. And like you, I do wonder if I'm being too caught up in that the end of 23. But
it wasn't even
good for that stretch. It wasn't like it was an accidental thing with a lot of bloop hits, and this man looked dangerous at the plate. How do you get back to being that?
But it's not even, if you just look at the totality of the rookie season, it was 230 plate appearances. He had more walks in those 230 plate appearances than he had last year in 389. And, this stuff snowballs. You get impatient because you have been struggling and you're desperate for a hit. You walk up to the plate, you see on the big scoreboard that you're hitting a $160 and your OPS is 480 and it's all you can think about. You go home at night, you're consumed by it, and you get up to the plate and it's like, you're not thinking, all right, I'm going to try to work the count in my favor. No, the first fastball you see, you're swinging out of your shoes. So I don't know how you get back to it, but it's in there somewhere. He's been a patient hitter, and he doesn't, this guy doesn't need to have a 12% walk rate. We're looking for league average here.
I'm just quickly trying to look at the differences between 23 and 24 in StatCast. Like maybe you see something there. Everything falls off significantly in 24, but it wasn't like he was doing anything that was out of this world in terms of expected numbers or even the barrel percentage or anything like that. But you do see in 23, his chase rate at basically 24%. That's up in the red. And then you come up to this year, and he's much closer to average in chase rate. So it jumps up a little bit. So he's chasing more, and maybe that patience plays a factor, but also pitchers don't have to worry about living on the edges as much when this guy is scuffling. So you're not going to work as many walks that way too, because they're going to be more willing to attack you. It's just, as you said, snowballs. He will be one of the more fascinating players, I'm sure, to watch this upcoming year. So will this man, Chase DeLauter. I could throw you the 105 OPS plus that ZiPS places upon him. And that would be interesting, but I didn't want it all be OPS pluses. So I'll say 202 plate appearances of that 105 WRC plus. Do you think we'll see more than 202 plate appearances of Chase DeLauter this year or fewer?
I'm going to say more. Give me another over.
Another over?
I mean, how long would it take to rack that up? 50 games? Not even? About 50, probably. Yeah, I think over for sure. This is the easiest one yet. And didn't you said one of our listeners ran into Chris Antonetti, and Chris Antonetti told him Chase DeLauter with no other context or a complete sentence, apparently. So
no, that's all Chris said.
Well,
Chris,
then that
my source telling
that
us
speaks
what
more
Chris
volumes than I could speak. Trying to analyze why I'm picking the over.
So when is he going to arrive?
You know, a lot of it has to do with Will Brennan, of course, but there are other ways onto the roster too. I mean, it's.
I thought you were starting with an Antonetti answer there.
Well, a lot of that's, it's certainly hard to forecast, and it's predicated on Chase's development, whether that's in the minor leagues or with our strength and training and coaching staffs in Arizona during spring training. And here's the thing. Keep in mind that this guy was not in big league camp last year, but played so well that he stuck around the major leaguers. And at the end of camp, they had to have a meeting with him, Stephen Vogt, the front office, sitting down with him to say, hey, man, you didn't make our opening day roster. We're going to send you to, I think he started in Columbus. They had never done that with a player who wasn't in big league camp. He wasn't vying for a job. He just played so well, they couldn't get rid of him. And they had to tell him he didn't make the roster, even though he was never really in the running for the roster. So it's not like this is a guy who, if not for injuries, we might have seen him last year. This isn't a guy who is, this is a top prospect and he'll be in spring training this year and then hopefully you see him by June or July or something. Like, this is a guy who I don't think he's going to make the opening day roster, but he could be called up as soon as someone is called up. And there are flexible ways to get him on. It doesn't have to just be Will Brennan. It could be an injury to someone, whether it's an outfielder, someone factoring into the first base DH competition. There are ways to get him on the roster. So, yeah, I would have taken the over if it were 350. How about that?
I know they're always seeking ways to get somebody up here to just give them a taste. Is there like a double header day built in? I think they really like when they call somebody up, but there's already a pre-existing way to get them back down. And it's not like in the case of Stephen Kwan. He could have and did play his way onto being on the team consistently. But if he would have struggled, then they send him down, and the message there isn't, you struggled, we're sending you down. The message was, Stephen, great job getting your feet wet up here. We'll see you soon. Go down to the minor leagues, get your at-bats, and come back up here ready to take on the day. And they love that. Anywhere where there's a built-in way to get somebody up here and then get them down without the lasting memory being a negative one, they like it. So I'm curious. Is that going to happen? Is somebody, they do have a pretty old first baseman now. And I got a note on him coming up. And Carlos Santana. Is he going to benefit from a week off of his feet just to make sure that he stays healthy? As you said, there are ways to make it happen that doesn't just rely on everyone else sucked and he's now the answer. Go get him, kid. But it'll be curious to see how they do it because there's no reason for that not to happen unless everyone else in his way, Jhonkensy Noel, blossoms and is on pace for 35 bombs and a 120 OPS plus.
DeLauter has to stay healthy too. That's part of this. I actually should amend my statement. In saying I would have taken the over on 350 plate appearances, that's assuming that he stays healthy for the full season and gets the earlier call up, which seems like a lot. They'd probably get plus money on that though, so I would have taken that. But But he's got to prove he can stay healthy. I have no doubt he can hit. And now, will he hit in his rookie year? I don't know. Is he intriguing enough to, at the bare minimum, if Brennan isn't cutting it, to give him Brennan's at-bats against righties? Absolutely.
I'll take the over on the 202 plate appearances, by the way. Kyle Manzardo is next up. They have him at a 120 OPS plus. That feels like a really good number.
Mm-hmm. This is another one where I thought you'd pick this one out. And this is the one in mentally prepping for these questions that I had the most trouble with. And I hate that you're asking me this after I took 4 consecutive overs, because I feel like I'm leading the Manzardo bandwagon charge. I think this guy is just born to hit and born to rock a mustache. 120 is that's a tough one. This would have been like, this is a stay away for me. I look at the slash line again, 247, 334, 445. I think that's really fair. But if I'm taking the under, it's not. I don't know. I don't have a strong feeling on this. I also don't know, are they going to protect him against lefties? Right? So he's going to be in there every single day against righties, probably hitting second or fourth. And he should crush them. If they protect him against lefties, I'm more inclined to say to take the over here. If they let him face a bunch of lefties and maybe he fails against them and finds ways to get better. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he thrives just against anyone. But I also don't know who's taking those at-bats away from him. Certainly Santana's going to be in there against lefties. You would think Noel would be in there, but he can start in right field. Do they give Jonathan Rodriguez some run this year?
Interesting note on him coming up.
So I this is tough. Like there should be opportunity for him to prove he can be an everyday player. But if he's going to be facing some lefties and maybe he struggles against them initially, maybe that leads me to take the under here. I don't know. I don't. Let me take the under, but it is the one I have the least confidence in. And in taking the under, I still think this dude is going to be a top 3 hitter on the team overall.
I would have liked if there was a more consistent force at first base for one more year to help maybe take some of that pressure off, but that's not the case. I will say slightly under, just because I do believe a lot in him, but I also know how tough it is to hit at this level, and there are transitions, and hitters will tell you that this is the toughest jump from AAA to the major league that's ever existed in time, in history. Many reasons for that. Maybe some of it is because there are so many pitching injuries at the major league level, so all of the good pitchers at AAA are getting shoved up to the major league level, and now the pool at AAA is not as good as it once was. I don't know. Could be many, many reasons for it. I just feel like it's asking a lot to just say he's going to be above a 120. I could see him landing at 120, but this is over-under, so I think like 117 was the number that popped into my head.
Yeah, it's also they're giving him a lot of credit for the plate discipline. That jump from a 247 average to a 334 on base percentage says a lot about the guy. They're projecting him to have a really healthy walk rate, which makes sense. He's a guy who the profile is good swing decisions, draws a bunch of walks, hits for, he's not going to, I don't think he's going to hit 40 home runs, but he's a guy who could hit 20 to 25, certainly, and hit a ton of doubles. Like, that's a really good player. He drew 9 walks last season, right? And I know when you come up from the minor leagues for the first time, it's tough for a young player to have that patience and to try to work counts and stuff. I did think his at-bats got a lot better as the season went on. I thought his at-bats in the playoffs were great. He didn't draw a walk in the playoffs, but he was working counts and finding pitches he could drive. He looked like a professional hitter, especially in that Yankees series. So I think that leads me. I think the under is the safe play here. But again, like, am I going to be shocked if he puts up 124? Like, of course not.
No, not at all. One of my favorite things about the ZiPS projections, if you scroll down to the bottom, you can start to see hitting comps and pitching comps. We'll get to the pitching side coming up. And it's fun to just see who players, the most similar hitter at a certain age that player is now, who it is. Just this is removing all personal bias, all human bias. It's just what do the projections see when they look at that player. Like, for instance, Jose Ramirez right now is Marcus Semien. Stephen Kwan is Adam Eaton. And you can take that positively or negative because we think of what the career of that player became, but we're talking about what that player was at the same age that this player is now. Kyle Manzardo, Sid Bream, who was an above-average bat, but I think we'd all probably be disappointed if that's the ceiling for him. Then there's this one. This is not part of my over-unders, but I had three that popped out to me that I felt like were just notable to share. Jonathan Rodriguez, you said you don't know if he's going to get that opportunity against lefties. He started before Noel. He got that opportunity first. And the lasting memory of him is Rodriguez really scuffled at getting the ball off the ground at the major league level, which is surprising for a guy that hit 29 home runs at the AAA level and was, 40% above league average down there this past year. And the thing that jumped off the page for me, hitting comps for Jonathan Rodriguez, Christian Walker. And Rodriguez, in these projections, they think he's one of the better hitters in the organization, and just in terms of like what the OPS plus would be for him. And let me see. So 109 OPS plus for him, according to ZiPS. And then if you go onto his page, Steamer has him at 105, and Oopsie, which we mentioned before, is 110. Everybody that we've gotten so far at least believes that he's a competent major league bat. Does the team believe that? Is he going to get an opportunity this year? I know our guy Hiram really believes in Jonathan Rodriguez. But maybe are they seeing something that we have yet to see at the major league level in the most brief of times? Do you believe in what he's accomplished at the AAA level to at least suggest he deserves an opportunity with an outfield here that is still yet to prove what the absolute answers are out there?
I guess the question is the roster composition, right? Can you carry Rodriguez and Noel and Santana and Manzardo and platoon everybody? And I mean, maybe you can. I don't know. I think part of that just depends on what this looks like.
All right, the next one that jumped out to me, Zach, Carlos Santana. The projection systems here, not too believing in his breakout last year, which is to be expected because if you look at what his seasons were previous to this, it looked like a hitter that was in decline. Still not like awful, but probably not a guy you want hitting in the middle of the lineup. And then last year happened. He had a really good year. Guardians believing more in that. I have concerns that we're going to see this 96 OPS plus that ZiPS spits out. That one, I'm not asking you over under here, but this one just jumped out to me.
Me too. And how does he get to that 96? I'm having like flashbacks to 2014, 2015 when the Carlos Santana Wars, the original, you thought the Ahmed Rosario Wars were some battles and left you with scars? No, the Carlos Santana Wars, when we weren't sure if we should appreciate on base percentage and things like that.
We were
made
sure.
Him,
we were sure.
Made him the hitter that he's been for so long. This is kind of underwhelming, and it's why I don't know. I feel like anytime people are, why are the trades so polarizing? Like there's nuance to them, and I certainly have been vocal about opposition to certain aspects of them, but with the Naylor thing and the Santana, like if you're going to trade Naylor, can't you get a better hitter than Santana at this point in his career? That's I don't know, maybe that doesn't exist, and certainly not on a 1-year deal. But I guess my point here that I'm not getting to eloquently is that for the $12 million, which is, I don't know, an eighth of your payroll, like you need more than a 96 OPS plus. And you look at the slash line,
Sure.
It's 219, 315, 374. And I just think, man, I remember some days in like June of 2014 when he had that exact slash line and people were yelling that he's got to be cut. And we were saying, just chill. He's a slow starter and he's still drawing walks. And you see the power in there. He'll be fine. And he was always fine. But they need more than that.
Yeah.
And
I mean, to be clear, finish.
Well, I just like last year he had some pretty pronounced platoon splits, and these projections, they're less pronounced. I'm just curious to know how they'll use him. Is he playing every day? Is this where DeLauter could factor in maybe earlier than we would think by letting him get some of those at-bats against righties? Do you feel obligated to play him every day because he's good defensively at first base, and
you paid him a lot of money?
The second baseman is, you aren't sure how much you'll need that defense at first base. So there are a lot of questions on his usage, and then also, like, I know the guy is just an Iron Man, but at the age of 39, like, can you be expected to play 155 games? I don't know what this is going to look like, and maybe there are ways to, kind of like what we said with Manzardo, where he's not playing as much against righties, and so the OPS plus is higher because he's feasting on lefties. I'm not sure. Also, if you're paying $12 million and this is your solution to replace Josh Naylor, should we be having like questions about whether you should be playing every day? There's that too.
No. Yeah, maybe pooling some of this money you created with other trades, and then now Myles Straw, you've been better off sending that in the direction of, I don't know, a certain right fielder that's still out there that is familiar with your organization. To be clear, I don't think Santana's going to be bad offensively. I just don't know that he's going to be any sort of difference maker, anyone you want hitting close to fourth in your lineup, especially against righties. I mean, go back the 4 previous years before this past year with Minnesota, where he's a 3-win player, 114 WRC plus. That's 14% above league average. Before that, he was a 99 in that shortened 2020 season, which that one's the one I can't get out of my head. Like that's what feels destined to repeat. 99, 81, 102, 100. That's a hitter that you're seeing also some of the walk rates that were up in the mid, like 15%, hovering around there. They're dropping a little bit. This past year is at 10.9. He's still going to take the walks, but he's not the guy that is going to generate almost all of his offensive value through the walks. I have questions. It's not impossible that he goes out and does another 114. I don't think it's impossible. And maybe they feel better about some changes he's made under the hood to get to that level that we don't appreciate fully. I'll buy that too. But I just have concerns about a guy that's entering his age 39 season, and the projections would agree with those. So we'll see where we're at there. Last one, we don't need a ton of time on this one, but I also love the near age comparisons for Clase. It's Mariano Rivera. It doesn't, even the computers say Mariano Rivera. We do it because we see the cutter and we see, okay, he's a closer. Of course it's Mariano Rivera. The computers say it too. 2.15 ERA. Somehow that feels disappointing. Like, on what planet are we on? We're at 2.15. Oh no, what happened? Oh no.
Well,
not as good.
I look at all the relievers and I think, wow, these are some pretty good stats that they're projecting for them. This will be a great bullpen. And then I think back about what they accomplished last season and how much worse these projections look. But it's, of course, you're going to bake in some regression when all these guys had sub-2 ERAs. It's hard to project, especially when there's only one season of track record for most of them. But yeah, it's weird. Like, I think like Clase allowed 5 earned runs during the regular season. You think, for 2.15 ERA, they're projecting he'll go 71 innings, 17 earned runs. That seems like so many.
Whoa, what happened?
Like almost one a week.
Was he facing Judge in every at bat? Like, What the heck? This isn't on my list at all, but the one name that gets me excited seeing these projections, Tim Herron. I can't wait to see the season that Tim Herron is going to have.
What about Austin Hedges? He's projected to have a 5.40 ERA in 6 2/3 innings. And the thing that stuck out to me is he's projected for 1 strikeout, and I need to know which batter he's striking out. I feel like somewhere in the projection systems, he's somehow facing Austin Hedges, the hitter, and that's who he strikes out.
There's the joke. There it is. All right, let's get back to these over-unders as we wrap things up. Stick on the pitching side for a few of these. Gavin Williams, 3.84 ERA. You taking the over or under here?
I'm taking the under, meaning a better ERA.
Oh, yeah, I guess that's true. I'll say over being the better outcome, under being the lesser outcome.
Yeah, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice. Just a Gavin Williams apologist here. Give me the over. I think his stuff is so good, and we saw in his rookie year, like, he had not come anywhere close to unlocking what he could be, and the ERA was far below 384. So, yeah, I don't think he's gonna have a 250, but like, can he have a 340 across 180 innings? Sure. So give me that.
Yeah, I'll take the over here too, or the better ERA than 384. Though 384 would be a nice addition to the pitching staff. All things considered here, that him being healthy, I just feel like if he's healthy and he has a normal spring training, which you can't guarantee for any pitcher ever, but if he does that, I absolutely believe he's going to be better than a 384. Is he going to achieve top of the rotation status or even get to where Tanner Bybee has been? I don't know that yet. I don't feel good enough about that yet. But there's some good pitcher in there, and I think just with the baseline skills that he has, I think they can get the most out of him.
Let me ask it this way: you have to pick one pitcher not named Tanner Bybee, and Shane Bieber doesn't count either because he's a midseason return. You have to pick one other pitcher. If you had to predict someone else is going to wind up the best pitcher on the staff by the end of the year, who are you picking?
Luis Ortiz.
Really?
I don't know. I'd probably Gavin Williams, but It's a nice transition into Luis Ortiz's 1.6 wins above replacement. He had one last year in his season. Do you think he gets to 1.6 this upcoming year?
Yeah, this is a hard one. I don't know enough about him, and more importantly, I don't know enough about what they see in him and think they can improve upon, and whether he's capable of doing that. This is hard. Like, they project him for a 3.99 ERA. The strikeout rate's okay. The walk rate's a little high. Everything just looks fine. I really don't know on this one. I guess, like, I'm inclined to say under, and then I'm thinking, well, am I just saying that because I've gone over on almost every single one of these? I have no feel for this one.
How can you feel so negative about this team when every single one that I've thrown you is an over? You think they're going to overachieve here?
Because the thing is, like, Williams, I'm just like mesmerized by the stuff. And Ortiz has, like, interesting stuff, but it's not like, we sat here a year ago and our bold proclamation was Gavin Williams is going to have 200 strikeouts. And then he got injured and we're like, screw it. He doesn't need 200 innings to have 200 strikeouts. We'll stick with it. With Ortiz, like, he doesn't have that kind of stuff. So I don't know what to make of him. So I guess I'll take the under, but I have no feel on this. It sounds about right. 1.6, right?
Yeah, 1.6 felt really safe. I think if he can get to 1 last year when he was transitioning back into starting, and they feel like he had unlocked something as the year progressed, he can do better than that. 1.6 is really safe. I'll be more optimistic here on him. I'll take the slightly over.
I guess if you were going to build the case for over, too, it's assuming he sticks in the rotation all year.
I think that's
just
a huge
the workload
key.
helps him get there.
Yeah, soak up a lot of innings. I agree with you there. I'm not ready to say much more than 2, but I think he can get to 1.6 and beyond. 2 more here. All right, we'll stick with pitching. Tristan McKenzie, 4.77 ERA. But I can't blame him. I'm not yelling at the computers here.
And it's the same story. You dig a little deeper and you see, okay, they project him for a really high walk rate, really high home run rate, and it's the same thing. So, look, I don't know what he's going to be. There's such a wide array of outcomes for him. I'm going to take the better here. I'm going to take the over, the better ERA, based just on the fact that he can learn from last season. And the year they're predicting for him is basically the year he had last year. And if he can't improve upon that after spending half the season in AAA and proving to himself that his arm was healthy, he could get the velocity he needed. He, wasn't in pain all season. If he can't then improve upon last season, then I don't know where his career goes. So I will guess that he will be better. But it's another one of those, until we see it, and until we see really the strategy, the approach, the sequencing, the pitching with confidence, it's just a complete shot in the dark.
Yeah, I feel bad being as out as I've been on him, because I like the person. I'm rooting for him personally. I wish I had a better outlook on him, but I'm like you. Until I see some reason to change my mind on it, I'm not going to. And I think I would take the under here, or the lesser performance from him.
But don't you think it wouldn't take a ton? Like, the walks and the home runs are what is fueling this, right? If we're just focusing on the ERA. Those are fixable. The home runs maybe a little less so, but it's as simple as, we saw this in 2021 and then going into 2022 where he had similar struggles where it was falling behind in the count and then nibbling to where you're either going to walk the guy or you're going to throw him a 91-mile-an-hour fastball over the heart of the plate that he's going to crush. And it's as simple as just pitching with conviction, pitching ahead in the count, and using the right pitches at the right time. And I don't know. I feel like there are tweaks you can make, and if he can just pitch with confidence, and again, there's a
that's tough. That's the thing I can't get beyond.
Yeah,
that's the thing I can't get beyond, because he did find that confidence, but it was because he had the confidence in the stuff, and the stuff was there.
Yeah,
I don't know that the stuff is going to be there to unlock that confidence again.
But he maybe. The confidence wasn't there because of the injury risk, but he just went a full season with a healthy arm.
Well, at this point, what do you have to lose? Like, just let it loose.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Your career is now hanging in the balance here, and I guess so could your arm, literally, but what do you have to lose? You've already lost so much. Just go out there, and I think at some point, and this is, again, easy for us to say, for me to sit here and say this, but I think you have to just say, screw it. Screw it. If he crushes it for a home run, then how am I any worse today than I was yesterday? I've already lost my paydays. I've lost my spot in this rotation last year. I lost my job as a major leaguer. What else? What else? Other than the fact that I just continue to exist, this is not good enough for me. So I need to go out here and just whatever I got in the tank, you're going to get it.
And it's that, though, paired with an entire offseason to reflect on last season, to flush it. It's those things that give me a little bit of hope, confidence that he will be. And I'm not saying he's going to beat 2022 Tristan McKenzie. But like Bieber had to sort of reinvent himself and figure things out and adapt. I think with McKenzie, it's the same thing. Last year, I think he was pitching scared because of the elbow. And he said, like, he gave a lot of thought to, I probably should have gotten the surgery. And he didn't. And he had to learn how to pitch with confidence with his new makeup. Now you have a year of experience in the bag. You went through some big-time trials. And you're right. He has nothing to lose. So can you pitch to an ERA better than 4.77 so I sound smart? Yeah, I think he can.
Or at least somebody tell him that this idiot on the podcast named TJ keeps talking badly about you, and go out and make him shut up. Tell him to shut up. I'm okay with that. I'll be the catalyst for better performance. To boost my ego in one way or the other. Last one. Jhonkensy Noel. I bring this one up because I'm always fascinated by guys that are so drastically different in different systems, different projections. They all use their own algorithms. Some draw upon others, and some are completely their own. But he's a particularly fascinating case. The 22 home runs is what Zip says about Noel, but a 91 OPS plus. And if you look at the other projections we have so far, Steamer has him at 108, and Oopsie has him at 111. So two systems that think he's a better than above average major league bat. He's a guy that's worthy of playing. You're going to approach, Steamer has him at 16, Oopsie has him at 18 home runs.
111 so definitely seems like an Oopsie.
22 from Zips, but a 91 OPS plus. And Dan Szymborski even said, as you read the article at Fangraphs, and I suggest just go read the article if you want to see them all, he even says that he personally leans more towards the other projections being a little bit more real than his own. But that 91 was fascinating. Would you take an over or under there on Noel?
I would take a slight over. I think the power is always going to allow him to flirt with league average, but more so I look at the slash line projection of 213, 280, 400, and I think sounds about right. And that sounds about right. Honestly, I like the slugging percentage is always going to be tough for that to be much higher than that just because he's not going to do a ton of other hitting. But we also don't know. I mean, we have a very small sample size of this guy. And we think we know the type of hitter because he's going to chase a lot. And we've seen this type of hitter before. I think there's a little bit of a difference between him and, I think he's a little more Franmil Reyes than, what's his face? Oscar Gonzalez. But he's somewhere in between there. And he's in that Bobby Bradley mold, I guess. That doesn't mean that the script is written for him. But he's got to prove he can make some changes and he can adjust to big league pitching. And, at the very least, he'll always have that home run, which is just
iconic.
My son can't get enough of watching the replay. He thinks it's live every time. And so I think...
Me too.
He's there's a place for him. It's tough. You have to keep it he was so hot and then so cold. So I don't know what a full season of him looks like, and I don't know what the best role is. Do you try to just stick him in the lineup every day when he's going hot and then run away from him when he's going cold? But then how does he get hot again? And yeah, I don't know. That's why they often stay away from this type of profile. I'm saying a lot and saying nothing at the same time. I think that the slash line looks about right. He's absolutely a guy who could hit 30 home runs. He's also a guy who could struggle so much that he hits 7 and spends most of the season in AAA.
Yeah, I don't have a good feel for him either. It's why he could have the numbers he did in his rookie year, and yet none of us are saying, well, there's your right fielder, there's your DH, there's a guy that's in there every single day. I think we're all, maybe we've seen this profile enough with Franmil, and yes, Oscar was a much different hitter, but you see a guy that flashes and has good moments, and you believe that there's something in there, and then, only so many times can you take a punch to the gut before you start to guard a little bit from the next one. The power is absolutely real, though. The fact that he's 115.9 exit velocity was his max last year, which is in the top third in Major League Baseball. He's up near the top in bat speed. We know he generates a ton. And his barrel percentage at 14.5 was, again, one of the best in Major League Baseball. We know this dude can barrel up the ball, and when he does, it's going a long way. If you played him a lot, I don't question whether or not I think it's perfectly acceptable to believe he would get past 20 home runs playing him every single day. I think the power's in the... It's just... Does he sabotage himself so much that he only contributes that and that's it? By swinging at stuff out of the zone and not being patient? It does look like there are times where he could just reel himself in, even in the postseason. Because towards the end of September, he looked like the guy was swinging outside the batter's box and just trying to do way too much. And then you almost saw there were a few at-bats in the postseason where he reeled it in. Mm-hmm. And I think we even noted it. There were a couple of games where he was making the right calls and the umpire was just hosing him. And it's this dude is doing the process right. You got to reward him, because if he doesn't get rewarded for it, I have fears about him going and reverting back to being the guy that swung at everything. Can you just bring it in just a little bit? Because, man, if a pitcher makes any sort of mistake, goodbye.
Here is his slugging percentage by month. July, 540. August, 615. September, 196. Like, if there's just like a little bit more balance, then this guy is such an imposing hitter.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit of balance.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's... And like, you look at the totality last year and, 218, 288. That's right in line with what they're projecting him. The difference is he had a 486 slug in last year, or the projections say 400. And if I had to guess it, I think it'd be closer to 400 than 486. That's what I was saying before. But so much of that is just, we've only seen this guy ever be streaky. And so I don't know how you harness that over the course of a full season. There are some interesting elements. I'd be curious. Like, if you had to guess, let's say he gets 500 plate appearances. How many walks do you think he'd draw?
Oh God, I don't know. Because I think there are times where he could almost just make the decision, I'm going to walk more. And then there are going to be times where he doesn't walk for 2 weeks. I don't know. But I will say, I think in your mind, you think perfectly if you could draw it up. We know Major League Baseball is not this way, but wouldn't it be great if you just had a guy that just consistently hit 300 all the time? There was no 320 one week, 280 the next week. There's no fluctuations. But I think part of Noel's streakiness is a feature, not a bug. I think you like some guys in your lineup that, yes, will just the lights go off, and they are nothing. But when they go off, they carry your team for a week, and they are the different. Everyone else is asleep, and this guy's on fire, and that's all you need. I think some differentiation in your lineup. Yes, guys that are consistent are great because you never want to go too deep into a whole week of scoring nothing and getting nothing and just being a complete nothing burger. But there are benefits, I think, to different sorts of hitters throughout a lineup that a pitcher never can get comfortable and attack only one way. And we'll even hear this from pitchers that say they actually like it when a team rolls out there versus lefty versus righty lineup, because even though there might be suggestions in the platoons that say get this hitter up there, for a pitcher, if I only see right-handed batters or I only see left-handed batters, I never have to adjust. I never have to think about a different pitch. That's the same game plan for everybody, and so I settle into what it is, and I never have to change off of that. And so I'm wondering, even differentiation in types of hitters, that is an important thing to have in a lineup. And I think he's the sort of guy in this lineup particularly that if he's going well, that's fun.
Yeah. I mean, he played that role in July. Also, wasn't he the perfect guy to have at the plate in the bottom of the ninth of Game 3 against the Yankees? Even despite the struggles he had for about 6 weeks there, you just knew if there's a place for a player like that on every single roster. Now, you want him to be more than that, than just the guy who's lurking with the threat of a home run once every 15 at-bats. But at bare minimum, he can do that. And I think there's a bit of a leveling up here. I think if you look at the numbers, he had a really healthy walk rate in August. He drew 2 walks in July, 7 in August. And these are tiny samples. But, if he gets hot, let's say, for a few weeks, and then pitchers get a little, we got to pitch around this guy, got to be careful. If he can prove that he can make good swing decisions, be a little more patient, then you get even more pitches to hit. You know what I mean? There's like a leveling up here where the hot stretch is so good that it invites you to be more patient. It invites you to make better decisions at the plate, which then allow you to either prolong the hot stretch or just minimize the cold stretch. And we'll see if he can do that. Different hitters. I think Josh Naylor had a stretch early last season where the chase rate was so much better than it had been in the past. And then he kind of reverted back to his normal chase happy self. And we've seen we've seen different things with different hitters. I mean, Oscar Gonzalez went from a guy who his rookie season, he seemed like such a professional hitter and obviously delivered some great moments in the playoffs and then disappeared off the face of the earth. So we've seen a lot of examples of this go different ways. I have no idea what to make of Noel and what he'll do.
No L. No chance to know at this point. The one thing that I don't want to lose sight of, Oscar Gonzalez, when he broke through, was his age 24 season at the major league level. So he's a little bit older than Noel was this past year. He was at the age of 22. And you said, we don't know what if he's the next Franmil Reyes? And we say that like with the knowledge of what Franmil was. Let's not lose sight of the fact that Franmil for a few years was a fierce middle of the order bat that no one was complaining.
Yeah, it's not an insult. No, it's Franmil, I predicted 40 home runs every single year for the guy.
Yeah.
He was their unquestioned cleanup hitter every single day, and then he just lost it.
Yeah, what was it? At the age of his 26th season is when he just fell off. But before that, so he also broke through at the age of 22 with San Diego and had a 283-40, 498 slash with 16 bombs. And then his next year in 2019, between San Diego and Cleveland, finished with 37 home runs. So maybe there's some similarities there. I don't know. But he's a fun player to have, and I'm glad that they do. And I think we're also doing this right by maybe tempering the expectations a little bit.
Yeah.
And not just believing that that's their right fielder for now or their DH for now. No. The projections are fighting like we are in our heads, so it's right in line. Did we miss anybody? Real quick, 30 seconds. I mean, we could spend this on every player, but
yeah, I always love looking at the minor leaguers, like even the low level guys, and just like if you are, I don't know, if you're Justin Boyd, you see they project you for a 28 OPS plus, are you mad at the computers? I don't think we'll see Justin Boyd this year, though. Bazana, 79? Give me the over.